I'm excited. I know you're only in town for a couple days. Come down to see Gunnar Peterson, who's been a friend of mine for 32 years.
Yep.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Let's talk about you. Chris Duffin, tell us a little bit about you yourself, because we have a book here. Can I hold that bad boy up?
Yeah.
He didn't sign it for me. He signed it to Mona, not me. All right, so tell me about you, your education, and how you got to this point, if you would.
Yeah, sure. I'll try to, I'll give the elevator pitch version, kind of life story, and then we can dive in where it makes sense, because there's the formal education and then there's the school of hard knocks too, right? So my underlying value and driver in life is building resilience by, leaning into the demands, the stress, the training, and coming out the other side a stronger, more resilient person. And so we all know that in the gym, but all avenues of life, physical, mental, spiritual, body, mind, and soul. And it's like, that sounds freaking just silly over the top. But when you hear my story, you'll understand a bit more. So I grew up north of here, little Northern California, out in the boonies. So we're talking in the wilderness, in tree forts, in tents, homeless, growing up in the wilderness. And I dealt with murderers, a serial killer, human trafficking, corrupt police, all sorts of fucked up shit that people shouldn't have to deal with, right? And there's a lot of good things too in the course of that, but it was experiences outside of the norm. And then I ended up...
How old were you at this time?
So yeah, that was my childhood up through till high school. So in high school we had a little bit of stability. So parents were able to get a mobile home. It had running water and it had electricity, and we were there for 4 years, and that was the most stable period of my life. Now, it didn't have doors on the inside. We hung up sheets over the doorways. The wind would blow through the windows because they were little crank shut windows, and we had to throw up 2x4s to hold a sink so we could have a kitchen and stuff like that. And there was a lot of issues at home. So fact that when I went off to go to school, I ended up starting to take custody of my 3 younger sisters. And I raised my 3 younger sisters while I put myself through engineering school, worked on my career, worked on my MBA, and kind of advanced. So that's the first half of the story.
I love that you jumped over the schooling. So this is how I grew up, very poverty.
So the schooling, yeah. So the schooling,
but then you just crushed and put yourself through it.
Yeah. So from an educational perspective, we read all the time. That's all I had was a flashlight, a candlelight. The library. We didn't have access a lot of times to TV, radio. Periods we did, a lot of periods we didn't. So it was just back and forth. So the library reading was my friend, my home. And the physical nature of things was the hiking the mountains, splitting wood. I started working really early, doing everything that I could to earn a few extra bucks. And then in high school, I put that lawn mowing money to use in junior high, actually. And that's when I started training. I bought a bunch of those cement weights with the hollow bars, and I had it out back, and I would be training on the, behind the mobile home. And in school, I did really well too. So I was this mix. I felt like I needed to really push on the athletic side because I was also I was the nerd. I was valedictorian.
How did you get into college? Because this is it wasn't athletics.
It wasn't. Now, I was supposed to go and wrestle at Oregon State, but there's not a lot of scholarships in that arena. And
good school back then to wrestle at.
It was. I was a pretty good wrestler. So, and but I ended up writing, as I was looking for scholarships, academic, and I ended up writing a scholarship application for one of the large newspapers, and they didn't give me the scholarship. But they're like, we want to do an article on you. And that got picked up front page by them. And then it got picked up by the wire service across the Northwest. And people ended up coming together, donating a little bit of money, enough for me to buy a computer and a $1,200 car so I could get to school and a few things. But the bigger thing is Oregon Institute of Technology called me up. And they're like, we understand you want to go to school for engineering. You weren't able to figure it out at Oregon State. we can figure out a way to get you down here.
Wow.
So I ended up with, an academic scholarship and grants to go to OIT. By the way, I'm on the engineering board for OIT now. So I'm on the board for the college. But that's how I ended up getting to school, because I wasn't sure it was a thing. And then still, I had no fallback plan. And then I ended up having to take custody of my sisters too. So I was working full time while I went to school, and I did really well in school, but I didn't really need to be there. Like I get that stuff like really well, and so I basically just showed up and took the finals. And not what I'm recommending people do. But I ended up graduating.
I could see you doing this though, because I know how bright you are when it comes to this kind of stuff. And
well, I was a joke in like school the first few years. People are like, "Who's this guy?" And that's actually where I got the name Kabuki from, because I was just like this crazy guy that just like, it didn't make sense. He'd show up, he was in and out, and he used to wrestle, because there was this person named the Great Kabuki. He used to drink green stuff, spit it out, and he had a green tongue, and he was a wrestler, and I used to be a wrestler, and it was just a little weird, crazy guy. I'm still a little crazy. And so that's where the nickname came up there, and like, yeah, that's just who he is. And then finally, like my senior year, they're like, oh, wait, he's acing all the hard classes, and he has the highest graduating engineering GPA. But anyway, that sounds very braggy, but it's just like, I knew what I needed to focus on, and I didn't have to be there to do that. So, but they hated me because I never even bought books. So
this also makes sense to me, but I know you, so I hope you guys at home are getting a kick out of this, because it's don't jump over this stuff. It's you had hardship that set you up to win. Why didn't you quit? Why didn't you quit? By the time you get to high school, why didn't you quit and just go, forget this, I'm just going to work and bail out on everything else? What kept you going?
Watching people die around me. Watching people succumb to drugs. Watching people just go to prison. My friends die. Like, it was some fucked up shit. There's a documentary on Netflix called Murder Mountain. I was 50 miles deeper and more remote than where that took place. So if you want to think about the stories in my book being false, as far as like the murderers, the serial killers, the corrupt police, go watch that documentary. It's going to fuck your head a little bit. And that was my life. All right. So it was like a survivor mentality. There was no option. There was no couch for me to go back to.
You say there's no option. You could have gone drugs. You could have joined and started.
And I did. I got started drinking in college, and I drank way too much for a number of years, and that was a learning lesson for me.
But you got to college.
I did.
Prior to doing that.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to get them to get something of this battle that you went through. It's like, you grew up in such it's like Mona's growing up in communist country. It's like,
if you put yourself in a position, it's like the burning the bridge mentality. Like, if there's nothing else for you to do but to succeed, it forces you to do that. Or, your choice is to succumb. And the other aspect is the resilience. Like, I didn't just get there. Like, it was a lifetime of building to that level, to that point, like overcoming, and it continued to grow from there. So we're going to talk about the future from there, but it's just like your workouts. Everybody has a different baseline level of resilience, recovery capacity. One person's going to be able to walk into the gym, maybe their first time squatting, and hit 225 for like 10 reps. They're an outlier, right? But most people are going to have to build to that. But everyone over time, if you add a little bit and you layer a little bit more and you layer a little bit more, you can take on more.
So this is you as a kid taking on more and being able to handle and go, hey, I'm not going to go this route. I'm going to get myself out of here. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to do something.
And I knew where I wanted to be in life, and it was so far out there, but I focused on, like, what could I do right now? What can I do today? What's one step? Just like if I looked, I want to be Mike O'Hearn someday, right? That's going to seem like an impossible task. But what can you do? Well, I can eat right today. I can get into the gym today. I can make time for that. I can make sure that I'm not going to, just sit on the couch and I'm just going to order some pizzas. I'll start tomorrow. Like, you've got to focus on, are you going to see the reward tomorrow? Going, did I hit the gym? Did I ate well yesterday? No, you're not. And you're not going to see it a week from now. And you're not going to see it a month from now. You may see in hints. But guess what? You're going to look back 3 years and you're going to like, holy shit, where am I at now? I'm going to look at Jeff over here behind the camera. I haven't seen him for a couple years and be like, Jesus, look at this guy, right? And so
Jeff's huge now. You guys know this.
So, but that's the point. You're going to turn around one day and look back 10 years later and go, holy crap, that's how far I came. So there's a couple lessons here. One is about layering and building resilience over time. The second one is understanding and focusing on this long-term thing, but shutting that down and going, that's my goal. That's my North Star, and I'm going to work and make sure I'm taking the steps there, but focus today. Because it's going to be overwhelming if I look every day and go, I'm not there. It's going to be depressing. I'm not there yet. I'm still not Mike O'Hearn. I'm still trying to be Mike O'Hearn, and I'm just not there. But you know,
well, you jump forward, you graduate, you crush school, you leave there, and you start working full time and helping raise the family.
Yeah. So this is a point I'm moving forward in my career, and it was a learning experience. And this is like college, me like getting to socially like spend more time with people, and that's actually where the alcohol came in. It like opened me up because I didn't have a lot of acclimation to normal, and it like reduced some of my anxiety and fears. And then I drank too much and realized you need to stop that. And then I started realizing I can connect with people. I can be authentic. And I ended up being very successful, not just in the books, but in being able to work with people and motivate people. And so I was in the industry side of things, but I quickly started advancing to where I was at an executive level. And the next thing you know, I'm like the guy that they're reaching out to come in and turn around companies or get them fixed and prepped for sale, or growing them from a regional to an international presence. And that's what I did for like 15 years. So I was in this realm. And by the way, I mentioned I started lifting when I was 11 or 12 with the concrete weights. So I was lifting the whole time too. Yeah, I was lifting weights the whole time. So between 2003 to 2005, I ended up building my own home gym, starting to have people train with me. And I did that on the side. And then in 2008, I had like 20 people coming to my house and training. And I had a full like gym in my garage. And my wife at the time said, that's got to go. I've had enough.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, all right. So I opened my first, my gym, 4,000 square feet, right next to the smoke shop, right across the street from the very ghetto strip joint, because it's just a cheap tiles falling down on the ceiling, wires hanging out of the lights. Didn't care because we're just here to lift some weights.
Right.
Filled it up with equipment. And by the way, I built most of the equipment, or refined it. I was buy used stuff, fix it because it just wasn't right. I also had because then I turned my garage.
I got to stop you for a second because at this point, and this is what I love about powerlifters, and if you guys don't know this at home, is a majority of powerlifters, really good ones too, have an engineering or in some sense that degree or studied of.
Yeah, it's really interesting. There is a lot of people in that field because you end up like study and project management and planning and stuff like this really ties into that. And I'm just a tinkerer. I was an engineer, and my hobby was fabricating in design. Right, so it was natural. I ended up building my own full machine shop in my garage.
See, I love that.
And I'm just a perfectionist. I'm like, it's gotta be right. So, ended up opening a commercial gym. At the time, I'm running an aerospace company. I'm doing a turnaround on this aerospace company. Got a commercial gym on the side, and I'm training. Oh yeah, I was ranked number 1 in the world by this point in time.
Which took 8 years.
Yeah.
To get from ground zero, first one.
Yep.
To.
And then I was ranked. And I was ranked number 1 for the next 8 years. In either the deadlift, the squat, or the total.
See, and what I love about that is you're not a one-hit wonder. And I think the guys I'm still acquaintance today is the 80s and 90s guys that were never a one-hit wonder. They could stay in it for a longer period of time than everybody else. And I don't know what that is, and I'm going to try to find out from you today what that is. And how did you accomplish that? Obviously, you were the best the first year. How did you continue to be the champion?
Well, there's a reason I built my own facility, and I talked about building my own equipment. I knew that, again, I'm thinking about these lofty, way over the top goals. Like I could see, I wasn't going to tell anybody at the time what I thought I could accomplish. But I set it out there, and it was big and far out there. And to accomplish what I had in mind, I'm like, I know I need 3 things. 3 things. I need the right methodology. I need the right tools. And I read the right environment, and that's the environment and the culture of the people around me, as well as internal in my head. and I'm going to have to create that to do that, to be that. So I'm going to build a facility and draw these people in and create that environment. I'm going to learn and teach myself the best methods. And that's actually around the time I started doing, so I was reading a lot of articles on strength training, but I was also starting to teach myself kind of like on the physical therapy-ish type realm. And then I started advancing that around 2010. I started doing a lot of clinical continuing education on developmental kinesiology and neurology, and then becoming friends with a lot of really key figures in that side of the industry who are the ones that write a lot of the textbooks that are referred to in research or used in school. So these are people like Dr. Craig Liebenson here in LA. It's Dr. Stuart McGill, the lead spine biomechanist in the world, Dr. Kelly Starrett up in San Francisco. Like, these became like my friends and who I started talking with and lecturing with. So it gave me this lens.
Give me this for a second. So you weren't given this. You weren't. You didn't know, especially at 11 years old, that you were genetically gifted to be a powerlifter. By the time you finish school and you're kicking ass, and then you do your first powerlifting meet, it wasn't given again to you, because I want them to understand this. That at no point have I heard anything about. We don't know what our genetics are. We know we were strong.
Yep,
we were strong kids.
I knew I was stronger than normal.
So, but it wasn't given to you.
I knew I recovered a little better, and I had to take advantage of it. It was nothing I given.
And so then you put yourself in a position and put yourself around people that could help you. So the viewers at home right now that are listening to
create
this,
the environment. Make sure you have the right people. Make sure you have the right people around you, and sometimes that's people that are going to challenge you a bit too. So a lot of times I hate our common theme these days is like fuck the haters or get those people around. Sometimes those may be the right people too, if their best interest. Do they have your interest in mind? Are they trying to do you service? Or they people around you going, yeah, go, and you're going down a bad path that isn't going to lead to those results too. Have the right people around you, and making sure that they have the values and they truly want you to be better and service you. And sometimes that means challenging you too.
I'm going to jump into that again. So at this point, you're the champion, and then you start really going into kinesiology and learning about, I think recovery is the layman's term, is what you're trying to figure out. How can I train this hard and still recover and still get better?
Yes.
And so you're putting yourself again around not just like-minded people or powerlifters or something like that. You're putting yourself around experts in each kind of field.
And ones that didn't necessarily have the answers either, but I could have a conversation, and together we could try to come up with what the theories and the approach were, right? Based on the philosophy, the approach, that was very purposeful. It was very intentful in those choices to do that, because I knew that what I wanted to do, it was impossible. It was impossible given the current state of knowledge and tools that were available.
And nobody had done something that you've done that we're going to get to.
I wanted to do something that no one's done before.
Right.
And to get there, I had to train with a level of frequency, volume, and intensity, weight, beyond what anybody had done, over and over and over again.
What's going on in the mind at this point? What is, so again, I'm going to keep going back to these people watching, because I want them to pick up not just, hey, this guy's great and he's really, really bright. Okay. What can you transfer from at that moment going, okay, I got the right people around me, I can train like this, now I got to figure out these little details, but what's going on in the mind going, I'm going to do something nobody's ever even thought of doing, or maybe they have, but it's a joke.
Yeah. So what I'm thinking is, how do I pare away the non-essential? The more I pare away of the things that are taking up my capacity in life, so not just my training capacity, how do I pare away those things that are non-essential, the things that I fill my life with, or the things I fill my training with, all the stuff that isn't adding value, that I'm just doing, okay? And this is a very, very deep question. This is a very deep question because this is the second phase of the book. Hold that book up again. The eagle and the dragon. So the eagle, you see the giant eagle across my chest there. It's actually tied to my
We're
ankle.
going to pop the top here in a bit.
Yeah. So that is all about exploring your strengths and what you're capable of life. I had that tattoo done at 19 years old. It was 40 hours worth of work. And to me, it expressed that you could fly to whatever heights you wanted in the world. The only thing holding yourself back at the end of the day is yourself. Right? The second tattoo is that giant dragon, and that's the second half of the book. And that's an Ouroboros. It's a dragon eating itself, kind of
eating its own tail.
Right? Yeah. And he wraps around my body, starts from one side, wraps all the way around, and he's eating his tail. And this is the continual renewal of life, new beginnings. It is the purposeful reinvention of oneself. And I had this done in 2016. Took 40 hours, and I had it done in 1 week. 10-hour sessions. And I had a lot of things in my life. As you can imagine, I had a lot of trauma. I had a lot of questions and things I needed. And I was an overachiever, obviously. But I knew everything that I was doing, I could not sustain. I couldn't be a corporate executive doing what I was doing and a world-class athlete and have hobbies on the side and have a family and make everything work and everything happy. Something had to give. What's going to give?
What was it?
Oh, the job.
So you kept the dream. You kept the dream and got rid of the job.
I got rid of the job.
But the job made you financially. So how? Again,
that's where starting Kabuki was. How do I make training part of this? How do I align? How do I make sure that everyone around me in my life has the same values? We're trying to do the same thing. And so I founded a company built around this philosophy of continuous improvement and challenging yourself. And that is the essence of Kabuki. So it's going to draw these amazing people that should be in your life or part of your life to be in your daily life that I don't have to go to hit up on the weekend or spend a Saturday playing golf with. That's my life. And my training is part of my life. And it's paring it all down so that everything, there's no extra thing that I have to go here and spend, 60 hours a week working this job so I can make a paycheck so I can go here. And I'm not saying everybody can do this stuff. But I put myself in a position in life now where I can do this. And it was a deep, deep, deep dive. So to pull that off, I quit in a very high-paying, secure career. I sold my home. I sold my development property. I sold my other backup house. I leveraged my entire retirement savings for the last 20 years. I ran up all my credit cards. And I ended up in an apartment and divorced too, by choice. And I don't want to dive too much on the divorce side, but I wanted to have people in my life that were aligned with the same thing. And I had to deal with, a choice that I've made earlier in my life.
How old, just so we understand, when did you first get married?
I got married in 2006.
Okay. And then?
To an amazing woman. But it was not somebody that I was in love with, and it was not someone that they taught me stability. They were the antithesis of, they didn't want chaos. They wanted stability, and that's good, and I needed to learn that. But I found, anyway.
Okay.
We came to a conclusion, and I moved on, and I was okay with that. And I thought I would just be a single dad. And anyway, I talked about drawing people into the world, right? And
did it again.
I was not anticipating it. I wasn't going to go in the dating world, but I ended up drawing and finding, actually, at 40 years old, love for the first time in my life. I had no idea the stuff in movies and books was actually freaking real. You kind of know who my wife is.
Yep.
Yeah,
I do.
And I have no idea, how that happened, but damn. And so I'm married.
Mona
I have 3
both
kids.
follow her. She's incredible. And we'll give a tip out there. This one you want to follow because of the cooking is amazing and her personality. So Yeah, you won on that
She
one.
was just on Food Network. She's doing work with a bunch of different. Yeah. Anyway, well, she's freaking the bomb. Anyway, I won on that one. I wasn't anticipating, but it's like the same thing. I created this thing, and what is it? It becomes this magnet that draws that to you. It's creating culture environment, and so. By that time, the gym was 9,000 square feet, and I pardoned off a section of the back and started manufacturing. I'm like, I want to help people. I know enough. I've got this lens that I can get people out of pain. I can get them living a better quality of life, and I want to help people around me to help do that in the world, to teach people how to use training in a manner that can not be what broke their back and broke their knee and what I used to do until, and that it can add value, and we can take the negative stresses, the stuff that we don't adapt to, that takes away from our capacity in training and recovery, and take it off the plate. So same concept in life, in training.
Let's jump into that for a second, because one thing I believe is weightlifting done correctly gives you a long, beautiful freaking life. It's an amazing thing. And I keep talking about that, and people keep going, well, how are you heavy? How are you strong? How are you doing this? And I'm like, no, guys, the body will adapt and get stronger the more stress, in the way that we do it.
Yep.
But you're a believer in that weightlifting can help you.
Challenge and stress is the essence of life. There is no life. We've got some plants behind us. If they don't have something to work against, like anything, you break your arm, you put a cast on, it starts to atrophy instantly. Okay, the bone heals because it did have some stress on it, but leave the cast on and it's going to get brittle as well. This is the essence of life. Is we have to have. If we don't have that demand, physical demand, mental demand, emotional demand at some level, there is no life. And so, but it needs to be the right types of stresses. Some stresses we don't adapt to. And that's throwing a joint in a bad position and putting the tissue in and the structures in a position that they're not going to be able to adapt to. Let's remove that. And that's how we take that capacity. And I hope that captures with what I was doing with my personal life. I know that's a really kind of esoteric, reaching out there, but I'm hoping people can grasp what I'm talking about there.
Let's jump into that, because I think this is going to be really beneficial for these guys. You talk about the body, from what I hear, you're talking about how the body should function in a correct way, and that will stress it and put it in a stronger position, and you can keep getting better and better.
Yep.
Is there angles and stuff that I don't know about angles, but you tell me, is there angles that are bad and a speed that is bad and stuff like that?
There's nothing necessarily that's bad. We adapt to anything as biological things. But from an engineering and material science perspective, we have a limited amount of capacity. And so if we're not in poor conditions, lead to less capacity. So
layman's terms.
What that means.
Simplify that.
Simplify that means if I deadlift, or I'm a concrete worker and I'm bent over all day in poor position, I'm going to be more beat up every day, and I'm going to have trouble coming back and getting to work. Now, if I learn the proper position and the ability to brace effectively, I'm now going to be able to do that same level of work, more work, and not be as beat up, because I'm going to have more capacity to recover. I took it away by having poor technique. So I'm not saying being in a bad position is going to result in an injury, but I just want to clarify that. And it certainly heightens the risk if you're not recovering well, right? And so now if I want to get better, how do I get better? More work in the same period of time. If I can lift more weights in a week, or heavier weights in a week and recover in the same period of time increments, you will get better. That's the math, right? And
so you're saying you start add in more?
Like training, you build a training plan, right? You start somebody new with a smaller load, and over time, then you add some more, and then you add some more, and then you add some more, right? So if by getting in better positions that allows me to have more capacity to do that, I can continue to do that for longer, right?
Okay, but you somebody starts out 3 days a week, and then in 5-10 years, he's at 6 days a week. Where do you go from there then? Because you're going to continue to add on at that point?
So let's take a sec back, though, again, to bad positions or other stuff, right? So the muscles themselves work the best when they have the proper what's called length tension relationship. So if I'm doing a curl, at the very limit, if I'm fully extended, I'm not as strong when I'm in the center. And same thing, at the very peak, you're contracting, not quite as strong. So right there in the balance position, the bicep and the tricep are in their strongest position. So let's take the back. If we're super arched or super bent over, we have extended or contracted fibers on either side that are trying to balance that. So everything is going to work the best the more neutral I get with a joint position. So having the shoulder cranked in a weird position is going to be, that's what's going to take away that capacity, right? It's also going to heighten that risk of injury potentially because you're not recovering as well from that. So the better we can get that stuff, and that stuff takes coaching. You're very good at this. You've got good technique, and it's evident in your training because you've been able to do it for a very long period of time without injuring yourself. It's also good load management because not adding too much over time, right? So, but some of that stuff is also because of the equipment that we use. So some of us, we try to have basic, preschool playground physics. You get a thing and you got to put the round block in the round block and the round square block in the square hole and so on. And we try to shove everybody through the same equipment. If I take a 7-foot tall NBA player and go, let's do a back squat to full depth, many of them are going to struggle because their femur to torso links just don't allow them to do that in good position. What happens? They lose what's called this diaphragm, so at the base of your rib cage, relationship to the pelvis. And as we do that, those fibers on either side go, but also what happens is our ability to create pressure in that cavity, which is how we create the stability of the spine. The diaphragm descends down. We know it for breathing and respiration, but its secondary function is stabilization. It descends down and it creates pressure by pushing against the organs, and the organs push against the spine. They push against all the obliques, the rectus, the thoracolumbar musculature in the back. It presses on, and it creates a co-contraction between that and the pelvic floor, and it creates this perfect circular sphere of a blown up balloon pushing out in 360 degrees. Now, if I squashed it one way, it's going to have spikes. If I squeeze it, that big balloon this way, it's going to balloon out one side. And guess what's going to happen? It's going to blow out in that direction. It's weaker there. So this is what I'm talking about for positions and other stuff. And the equipment may not, taking that 7'6" NBA player and saying a load right there at this point in your back, you should be able to do what Mike does and what Chris does. They may not be able to do. Every able-bodied human should be able to squat through a full range of motion, but not with a center of mass in that one spot, because biologically we weren't designed with a barbell on our back. Okay, so
I was, but
well,
no.
But you understand. We have different lever links. We have different mobility restrictions. We are different humans, and we need to have equipment that adapts to that to allow the joints to get in the right position and to allow the right patterns to happen, just like what I was talking with the diaphragm and the co-contraction. I got all sciencey there, but
they love it.
There's some neurological things that happen when we do this sort of stuff. And so getting the joints in the right positions, getting them stacked, you don't need to know the science around all of the depth of what I'm covering here, but that's the concept. And so that's the design philosophy around the stuff that I was actually using training up to launching Kabuki and how I was able to push it, and what I started releasing, refining, releasing, and selling.
You wake up with passion. This is passion.
I'm a very passionate person. I'm a very passionate.
You guys don't know the story, but when you came down and deadlift, squatted with us, front squatted, and you were trying to go for a certain number and stuff, and there's blood's popping out of the back and everything, and it was such a savage
Heath
workout.
was behind me. He's running to get a towel. He's like, "Oh my God, you're bleeding." I'm like, "Oh, it's fine." He's like, "No, the people are going to freak out here. It's literally pouring out your head."
But it's you've always been passionate about this, and you need that. Because I think you and I can talk about this a little bit, is that motivation comes and goes, but passion it keeps you fired up. And it has to mean something to you.
People want to point to motivational quotes and things on the wall, and that's short term, and you really need to, you're only going to be passionate about things that are of deep value to you. And that's what's going to last in the long term. That's what's going to last when you paint that North Star on the wall that's 10, 20 years down the road. that's going to keep you going day in and day out when you're doing those minor changes that you're not seeing on the day-to-week basis. That motivational quote may get you fired up for, a short little bit, but you need to be passionate, and the way you're going to be passionate is really understanding who you are and what you want to do.
That's the big one. That's the big one. And I think hopefully you guys at home understand and can feel, because I've always feel the passion that you love this stuff. But I think, and it's funny, each week I get to sit down with somebody, just different walks of life, and they all have that passion. The passion that this is my dream, I want to do it, and I want to achieve it. And most of them didn't start out, well, actually everybody I've talked to started out humble beginnings. Humble beginnings. I mean, humble beginning might be a mom and dad and a kid. You didn't grow up. You grew up in such a hardship. And so I can truly appreciate that passion that you had, and that it's come to this position that we're at right now. So if you guys, main thing, the book, but I want to talk about one more thing before, because these guys now know and can follow you and ask you questions. When it comes to things that you wish you would have jumped on earlier, about health and fitness, about training, about getting stronger, what would you say to them would be something you would have got rid of or started earlier?
Yeah. That's a tough one. So I
would
still have
nutrition be one of them?
Yeah. So you know me today versus where I was in the past.
Yep.
And so I definitely am a lot leaner and healthier than I have. And I wouldn't say lean is healthy, right? But you're more comfortable now. I'm more comfortable now. And I definitely carried a lot of inflammation, I guess, as a whole, bloat from some of my dietary choices when I was younger, when I was really just chasing the powerlifting side. There was years where I chased, I tried to keep my weight down for competitive reasons, and that was good. But there was a lot of years that was a challenge. And then learning the stuff that I've learned and teach now, I have residual injuries from early in my career, and people go, well, why should I listen from you? You're the guy with bad broken elbows or whatever. And it's yeah, that helped because I didn't learn this stuff early on. But I can't beat myself up.
I got to stop you, because I would listen to you more because of the fact that these happened and you still came back and you still accomplished. So here's
the thing.
I would go the other way.
Look at anyone else that's done anywhere close to what I lift. They don't move around the way that I do or live the way that you can see them. They got broken backs. They got bad hips.
You're already taking me to where I wanted to go.
Yeah. And so, and the fact is, actually, before I did those big squats and deadlifts, I hurt my back so bad, I had to learn to walk again. I was completely immobilized. I got to the point that I had a walker. I had to use a walker, got to the point where I could finally walk on my own, and then I had drop fit for 6 months. And a lot of people will come to a conclusion of I'm in pain right now, this is my life. I'm the person with a bad back, I'm this. And I want people to know, you can build back from this. And I did those things with no back pain. A guy that was using a walker. I came back and did that. And so, yeah, there's.
See, I like that,
but I can't beat myself up too much, because the stuff that I brought to the table and what I do and teach now, it wasn't available. You will not find another video by an influential person in the strength industry talking about breathing and bracing and how that's integrated with lifting before my material. You will not find another person talking about foot and ankle complex and strengthening and positioning as it relates to strength training and longevity than the material I have produced. This sounds very egotistical, but this stuff dates back there, and I started these conversations, and I'm proud of that. But who could I learn from? Because there was no one. I had to go somewhere else to bring that to our field. There's a lot of bright guys that knew this stuff intrinsically, like yourself. You were just doing it, but nobody was articulating the specifics of that to the masses, and why it was, the physics, the neuro, all the things around why that was important, so that it would get picked up and be used throughout the industry by strength coaches and things of that nature.
That's why I like talking to you and Ed and Matt. It's just there's a education will take you so far. Experience finishes that, and an experience really in the trenches.
In the trenches,
not
no,
social
in the trenches.
media. I mean, in the trenches, actually doing it and stuff.
You have to do it to learn. You can only read in papers and sitting in a Starbucks doing research is like, if that's your gig and you think you know everything, you don't know until you do. You have to research and you have to experience.
I love that you're out here. I love that you're out there doing this.
And that's the personal side of chasing the 1,000. For me personally, one of my other values is continual learning. Obviously, challenge, accomplishment, those all fit in there. But is the learning process. When I put myself in the moment of when I'm in these places where I'm about to fall apart and I'm riding the line of reality of what it's feels like to be alive or dead, you learn so much more, and the things of what you know and what's working or not, they're right in front of you. You're riding right on the edge of that cliff, and you know just that minor move of the wheel, and you're gone or you're not. Now, if you're driving through the middle of Death Valley, you don't even know if turning the wheel what it's doing or not. What happened when I changed my carbohydrate a little bit? What happened when I did a little bit of soft tissue here? What happened when I affected my sleep a little bit? I don't know. You can't tell. You've got 100 miles either direction. But when you're on the side of that cliff and you're about ready and you make a minor change, you're like, oh my God, that made a difference. That's the laboratory, baby. That's when you take the research and put it to the method. And that's one of the reasons my name on social media, well, I was given it by Stan Efferding, the mad scientist, but is the experiment side of it, the craziness of being willing to do that and chase that and learn from it.
I love that. No, and I can relate with this just because of the fact that I wish I deadlifted a different way when I was a younger kid, and you find that as you're aging, because age teaches you everything. Yeah. Age teaches you maybe this may do something different, and you find those things. And so I totally relate with what you're doing. Longevity with weightlifting. One thing that I found is the repetition or the positioning of similarities over and over again didn't help me. It structurally made me strong in certain positions and so weak in other positions. And so I learned, like from Battle Dome back in 2000, right?
Mm-hmm.
But before then, I started changing things, going, no, I'm an athlete. Even though I competed in powerlifting and bodybuilding and won both, I realized I was doing athletics 10 times more because of gladiators, Battle Dome gladiators, and martial arts. So it's like, okay, I had to figure out a way to make myself strong in all positions. So there's one way to squat and for each individual and stay with that? Or is there other? You tell me.
Yeah. So this concept of movement variability is huge for athletes, and the research shows this. So we see with children, you got Titan who's going to be growing up and getting this stuff. Like people that take their kids and specialize in a sport because they're like early specialization will lead to superior results, end up with more injuries and issues. And like the champions, some of the best, what they did is played a lot of different sports, even though they were great at one, right? But that led to greater performance, less injury rates. So that is a huge concept. Now, when it comes to movement, people will want to preach like squats. Your feet need to be in this position. Your toes pointed this way. You're like, this is all it is. No. So everyone has different hip structures. It's just like your eyes. Even one hip related to the other can be different. One can be slightly deeper and a little offset to the other. The reason you're walking up to a squat and one foot is a little different and you fixing it, you might be inducing issue because are your eyes 20/20? Well, your hips are the same. They might be a little different, one for the other.
These guys probably don't know this, but if you ever see Tom Plaz squat, he squats off feet. They're different positions, and so
there's a good likelihood he's squatting perfectly to each one of the hip sockets. Yeah. Now
the greatest legs ever.
So what I tell everything that we do is around principles. So if I take care of from a principle-based approach, if I'm able to create great pressure for the amount of weight that I'm loading and have
pay attention to that part. That part's huge.
To the diaphragm to pelvis and what we call intra-abdominal pressure. So it's the eccentric loading of the cavity. This is a principle, right? And it's a principle to have the rib cage and that pelvis located to each other. It's a principle to have the ankle complex over the top of the foot. Not too much suination, not too much pronation. There is deviation in all these a little bit, but if we manage basic principles, we can change a lot of stuff around that as far as stance and other stuff. And people that have, like, this is the prescriptive squat stance, don't know what the fuck they're doing. Excuse my language.
I just want you to take a second, and I want to go just silent for a moment, just for everybody that just passed out.
So it's a principle-based approach. So once you understand those like fundamental principles, we can work within that, right?
I'm just going to keep smiling right now, just because everybody at home right now is just watching this video is going, that's why he does what he does. And it's one of those things I keep trying to talk about. It's one day I'll do an over-exaggeration movement, or the next day I'll come back and do a short range of movement, but the elbows will be out. And so all these things, and people, I just did, I think, like 250-pound tricep extensions. And they're like, dude, you're 100 years old. How are you doing tricep extensions with 250 pounds? It's like, oh, because of everything else I've been doing the 25 years, just since I realized you can't stay in the same position.
Yeah.
And it's those, and I think you agree with me on this, it's the smallest change in multiple ways that strengthen everything.
Yeah. And so that's like some of my new tools really work with leverages and positions. So you can sit there and play around. Yeah. Oh. You can play around with so many, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, there it is. I'm hitting this line of like, I've never been able to hit the rear delt just that way, or the tricep. Man, you can do so much, and it's so valuable.
Where can they pick up the book?
Amazon, Audible. It's on Audible as well. Actually, you know what? Go to chrisduffin.com, and there's links to it on there, links to the Audible. And if you sign up for the email list on there, you get the first part of my book for free, so you can figure out if you even want it or not. And you'll get exclusive discounts to all my, to Kabuki, Build Fast, Barefoot.
If they want.
So it's all there. It's simple. Links
training.
to social media is there. Links to Kabuki, which is where we house our education and coaching. So Kabuki Strength, or you can go there directly if that's what if you want. But Kabuki will or chrisduffin.com will kind of direct you to all of that. Yeah. See your doctor. Like
see your doctor.
Said, that's how I got on the journey. So I was 33. I'd actually been pressured to get on TRT for 3 years prior because I had low testosterone. And so I just I was a competitive athlete. And so once I chose to go on TRT for my personal issues, it's like, well, I can no longer compete tested. So I may as well do what I did. Right. And so that's how I
become the very best.
That's how I ended up being on that journey. Because it was like, yeah.
You got so much knowledge, and you got so much, what I love, and I'm going to finish this up after you are gone. But I think the understanding on how to stay healthy, how to do this right, and then the main thing is you got to have some kind of passion for this to do it and do it right.
Yep.
Thanks for hanging out today,
man. It was a blast.
I always like hanging with you. Next time we got to train though.
Yes, we do. Well, we're doing curls after this. You threw this.
I ain't doing curls. We're doing You're doing curls with Mona. I want no part of this.
Okay, then it's triceps. You just agreed to triceps.
I'll do that. Thanks, brother.
Thank you.
As long as I've been doing this, I've never met somebody that was gifted that upbringing. It's one of those things that I know that you guys wish you had the money when you grew up. I tell you this, it's the people that have to struggle as youngsters that make a truly amazing, successful life. And today is somebody that did that, and they did that to the highest level, to where they did something that nobody else in the world has ever done. And so I hope you guys take away from this his upbringing, the passion he has, the knowledge he has. And weightlifting, if you can simplify it, is great. But there is such an underlining, amazing thing to weightlifting that can enhance your body to be better instead of get older and deteriorate. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week. Subscribe to the channel.